Billionaire watches rural waitress, lets his disabled son a dance, and his life is forever changed. Before we dive into this breathtaking story of overcoming obstacles, leave a comment below telling us which city and country you're watching us from. Stay tuned until the end. The journey to the interior. Elliot Stanford has always been a businessman accustomed to the frenetic pace of the big city. After his wife's death, the silence of his mansion became unbearable, and his relationship with his son Nathan was marked by distance and sadness. So, in a sudden decision, he decided to take Nathan to a refuge in the countryside, looking for a place where they could find peace and perhaps reconnect emotionally. The journey lasted for hours, crossing empty roads and small towns forgotten by time. Elliot looked out the window, absorbed in his own thoughts while Nathan remained silent, only moving the wheels of his wheelchair. The boy seemed oblivious to everything, as if he had always been used to isolating himself from the world. Elliot felt the weight of the silence, but he didn't know how to break it. When they arrived, the setting was simple. A small roadside diner, surrounded by fields and a few houses. Elliot decided that this would be a good place for Nathan to breathe in a different air, away from the clinics and therapies that seemed to have no effect. Even though he was suspicious, he knew that this trip was a last attempt to save his relationship with his son. However, Elliot had no idea what that place and that simple waitress would mean to him and Nathan. He had no idea that life, so full of hardships and pains, could find unexpected brightness in a seemingly simple gesture. Their journey was about to change forever. Claire's simple lives. Claire Miller woke up early every day to care for her sick grandmother before heading to work at the diner down the road. Life in the small town was hard, and every penny counted to keep her grandmother healthy, and healthy was hard-earned. Despite this, Claire never lost her smile or her hope, believing that one day things would get better. The diner where she worked was simple, with wooden tables and an old radio that played music that seemed to travel back in time. Claire knew the routine of all the customers, and was respected for the kindness with which she treated each of them. For her, that job was more than just a job. It was a way to stay strong and take care of those she loved. The day Elliot and Nathan arrived, Claire was in the middle of her shift, serving with her usual attentiveness and friendliness. She watched the two enter with curiosity, immediately noticing Nathan's difficulty and Elliot's closed expression. Something about that scene touched her heart, awakening in her a desire to help that even she herself could not explain. Claire knew that her life would never be the same from that moment on. That unexpected encounter would open doors to feelings and challenges she never imagined she would face. The humble waitress, accustomed to her routine of struggle, began to write a new page in her story. The first contact. When Elliot walked in with Nathan, the diner went silent for a few seconds, as if everyone had noticed the presence of that reserved man and his disabled son. Nathan, with his eyes fixed on the floor, avoided eye contact and didn't say a word. Elliot looked uncomfortable, carrying the weight of the past and the fear of the future. Claire approached with a light smile, trying to reassure the boy. She knew that just providing care was not enough. She needed to offer support. Without rushing, she began to talk to Nathan, trying to break down the barriers that the wheelchair and the silence imposed. Elliot watched from a distance, torn between the desire to protect his son and the hope of seeing a change. The waitress offered a drink and a simple dish, but she made sure to prepare everything carefully, as if that gesture could be a beginning. Nathan, for the first time, looked up and gave Claire a hesitant look. That simple interaction seemed small to the world, but huge to those two hearts marked by pain. Elliot realized that Claire's attitude affected him in an unexpected way. It was as if this unknown woman was opening a crack of light in the darkness that surrounded them. The initial connection was made, and neither party knew how much it would impact their lives. An invitation to dance. As soft music played on the old radio, Claire felt that something needed to be done to bring Nathan out of his emotional isolation. She gently asked the boy to dance. Nathan hesitated, surprised by the unexpected invitation, but when he felt the waitress's encouraging gaze, he accepted, albeit with some uncertainty. Elliot stood transfixed, watching as his son was gently led by Claire's hand. That simple gesture was something he had never seen happen before, a moment of spontaneity and joy that seemed impossible to Nathan. The dance, even if shy, showed Elliot that his son could open himself up to the world, even if only for a brief moment. At that moment, the sadness that had enveloped Elliot began to slowly dissolve. He realized that his emotional rigidity was preventing not only Nathan's happiness but his own. That invitation to dance was a clear sign that they needed to change, that healing could begin with the simplicity of a gesture. Claire, in turn, felt a mixture of hope and responsibility. She knew that this moment was the beginning of a transformation for all of them. The dance was not just a physical step, but a symbol of what could become a new life, marked by connection and affection. The smile that changed everything. After the dance, Nathan smiled for the first time in many years. It was a shy but genuine smile that pierced the silence and touched Elliot's heart deeply. He could not contain his emotion at this unexpected and silent transformation. The boy, who had been so withdrawn, was beginning to show signs of life and joy. Elliot approached, moved, and for the first time in a long time, he tried to talk to his son without his usual coldness. He felt that this moment was unique, a chance to rebuild a bond that seemed lost forever. Claire watched everything with a mixed feeling of joy and expectation, aware that this story was only just beginning. From that moment on, Claire's presence in the restaurant ceased to be that of a waitress and became the bridge that united a father and son. She didn't know exactly what role she would play, but she already realized that her path was irrevocably linked to theirs. The small gesture of an invitation to dance set off a chain of events that would change not only Nathan and Elliot's lives, but Claire's as well. Their story was just beginning, and the future promised twists and turns that no one could have foreseen. The routine that is born. In the days that followed, Elliot returned to the diner with Nathan more and more frequently. The boy, who had previously been so withdrawn, began to wait for the moment when Claire would show up to serve the table. Elliot, in turn, began to observe the young woman with a mixture of admiration and caution. He knew he was opening a door that had long been locked. The simplicity of the rural routine and Claire's kindness created an environment that Nathan seemed to understand as safe. With each smile they exchanged, Elliot felt a timid hope that his son could develop emotionally beyond what was expected. This was not just a casual visit. It was the beginning of a silent transformation, one that no one could have foreseen. Claire devoted herself to Nathan naturally, offering small gestures of affection and attention. For her, caring for that boy was an extension of the care she had always given to her sick grandmother. There was a maternal instinct in those attitudes and a genuine desire to see the other person grow, regardless of their condition or past. Elliot, despite the distance he still maintained, began to realize that he could no longer control everything with the same coldness as always. That connection that was forming was not only with Nathan, but with Claire as well. He felt like he was being pulled into a new world, where money and control were not enough to fill the void that consumed him. Tommy's approach. Tommy Greer, the diner's manager, watched with suspicion as Claire's growing attention to the boy and the wealthy man who frequently visited the restaurant. To Tommy, the connection seemed dangerous, a threat to the stability of the diner's routine and the simple life he had known. He feared that Claire would become too involved. Tommy's jealousy wasn't just professional, it was also personal. He had always had a silent affection for Claire, a feeling she never realized. Seeing Elliot Stanford, a man from another world, enter her daily life with such intensity awakened a mixture of insecurity and possessiveness. Tommy tried to warn Claire about the risks of getting involved with someone so different, someone whose world and problems could destroy the simplicity she cherished so much. He feared that she would lose herself in it all, and that the exposure could bring painful consequences for both of them, but Claire didn't want to hear it. To her, this man and his son were more than just clients or curiosities. They were an opportunity to change her own story, to expand her horizons beyond what the small town offered, and she was willing to take any risk to do so. Revelations and confessions. One rainy afternoon during a break at the restaurant, Elliot decided to open up to Claire. He told her about the death of his wife, a loss that devastated his life and that of his son. He talked about the silence that had developed between him and Nathan, a silence that seemed impossible to break. It was the first time he had spoken to anyone other than a lawyer or a doctor about his grief. Claire listened attentively, without interrupting, understanding that there was more than sadness there. There was a silent plea for help and understanding. She also told him about her difficult life, the early loss of her parents, and the responsibility of caring for her sick grandmother. That moment of confession created a deep bond between the two, a bridge made of vulnerability and empathy. Nathan, who was watching from afar, felt the change in the air. For the first time, He saw that his father was not an insurmountable wall, but a fragile man trying to find his way. And Claire, with her quiet strength, seemed to be the light in that dark tunnel that the family was carrying. That conversation changed the dynamic between them. Elliot was no longer just the cold and distant man. Claire was no longer just the humble waitress. They began to become part of the same story, united by suffering and hope for a better future. The physiotherapist and progress physical therapist Dr. Karen Ross, who was treating Nathan, noticed the subtle changes in his son since he started coming to the cafe. Although his body still had limitations, the expression on Nathan's face showed clear signs of emotional improvement, something she knew was essential for his physical development. Karen talked to Elliot about the importance of this new environment in his son's life. She explained that emotional bonds and a sense of belonging are essential for physical therapies to be effective. Elliot, who had always focused solely on clinical treatment, began to realize that the emotional aspect was something he had neglected. She suggested that Nathan have more socializing and stimulation outside of the hospital environment, encouraging Elliot to allow his son to participate in simple activities such as that dance that Claire offered. Elliot felt a mix of hope and fear, as he was still afraid of exposing the boy. Karen's recommendation was the push Elliot needed to continue that routine that, until then, seemed unlikely. It was a light at the end of the tunnel, a path that he began to tread cautiously, but with increasing faith. Tommy confronts. Tommy's jealousy and concern reached a critical point. He confronted Claire one morning before work, making it clear that he did not agree with her growing involvement with Elliot and Nathan. He warned her that she was entering a different world, full of complications and risks that could harm not only her, but everyone who depended on her. Claire listened in silence, understanding Tommy's intentions but not accepting his words as the absolute truth. For her, this relationship was a chance for change, a hope that overcame any fear or pressure. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she was determined to follow her heart and not give up on what she felt. Tommy tried to appeal to her rational side, reminding Claire of her responsibility to her grandmother and the stability that the diner provided, but she no longer saw that place as her only path, because the connection with Elliot and Nathan had awakened in her a desire for something greater, a dream that she had never had the courage to express. At the end of the conversation, Claire thanked them for their concern, but made it clear that her decision had been made. It was time to take a risk, to give up security to seek something true and transformative. Claire and Martha, the strength of family. At home, Claire cared for her grandmother Martha with silent dedication. Martha, even bedridden, was a wise woman who understood the changes in her granddaughter. She felt that Claire was involved in something important, and that despite the risks, this new phase could bring growth and happiness. Martha shared stories from her family's past with Claire, emphasizing that courage and resilience have always been part of her heritage. She reinforced the importance of fighting for what you believe in, even when the path seems uncertain or dangerous. For Claire, those words were a fundamental emotional support. Their relationship was a delicate balance between care and learning. Claire provided physical support to her grandmother, while Martha nourished her granddaughter's soul with teachings and memories that helped strengthen her spirit. It was an exchange that sustained both in the face of adversity. This solid foundation at home gave Claire the strength she needed to face the challenges that would come her way with Elliot and Nathan. She knew that no matter what happened, she would never be alone. Nathan takes first steps. To everyone's surprise, Nathan began to take small steps with help and support. The physical improvement was accompanied by a significant emotional change, reflected in the boy's growing desire to participate in the world around him. The confidence that Claire instilled was one of the pillars of this progress. Elliot, who watched each step forward with a mixture of pride and amazement, felt that Nathan's transformation also symbolized his own healing. This once fragile boy showed a new strength that inspired his father to break through his own emotional barriers. Claire followed everything with a mix of joy and responsibility. She knew that this achievement was the result of a collective effort, but she felt especially grateful for having been a fundamental part of the journey. Each step Nathan took was a step away from pain and closer to life. The atmosphere of the diner, now marked by the constant presence of Nathan, Claire, and Elliot, began to be seen by the residents as a symbol of hope and renewal. The small progress of that boy was an example that touched everyone. The unwanted exposure. The quiet of their little hideaway was shattered when a local journalist discovered Elliot Stanford's identity and his routine at the diner. Word spread quickly, bringing unwanted attention and exposing Claire and Nathan to curious and intrusive eyes. Elliot was concerned about the invasion of privacy and the impact that sudden fame could have on his son and the waitress herself. He tried to contain the situation, but he realized that the outside world had other plans for the story that was beginning to unfold. Claire felt invaded and vulnerable. The simplicity of rural life was threatened, and the fear of losing her newfound connection with Nathan and Elliot began to grow within her. The balance she had cherished seemed to be crumbling under the external pressure. The chapter closed with an atmosphere of tension and uncertainty, making it clear that the next decisions would be crucial for the future of the three. The moment of peace was ending, and the greatest challenge was yet to come: facing the storm. After the unwanted exposure, Elliot, Claire, and Nathan felt the impact of the public attention. The visits to the diner increased, with curious people and photographers trying to capture every moment of the makeshift family. Elliot, accustomed to absolute control, saw his privacy invaded and had to rethink his role in his son's life. Claire struggled to maintain her routine at the restaurant, but the harassment threatened to destabilize everything she had been building. Nathan, although resilient, felt confused with so many people around him, which hindered his progress. It was time to make difficult but necessary decisions to protect what really mattered. Together, they discussed the next steps, agreeing that Nathan's emotional and physical well-being was the priority. Elliot realized he needed to let go of control and let love and trust guide the family. It was time to strengthen the bond that was blossoming. The chapter ended with a sense of renewed unity. Even in the face of the storm, they were ready to face whatever came, trusting in each other and the strength that only a true bond can provide. An invitation to the future. With the situation stabilized, Elliot received an unexpected invitation to participate in a TV show dedicated to inspiring stories. It was an opportunity to give visibility to Nathan's progress and Claire's dedication, showing that overcoming can happen anywhere. Despite his fear of exposure, Elliot saw this invitation as a chance to transform the family's story into an example of hope for others. Claire supported the decision, knowing that this step could open doors to a better and more dignified life for everyone. In the days leading up to the recording, they prepared themselves emotionally, aware of the challenges that would come with sudden fame. Nathan, still shy, felt encouraged by the constant support of his adoptive mother and father, who for the first time seemed united around a common dream. Anticipation filled the little family, who now saw their future in a new light. It was the beginning of a journey where vulnerability would give way to courage, and the painful past would be overcome by the power of love. The dance that changed everything. During the program, the moment that would change everything arrived, the dance that Nathan did alongside Claire. With hesitant but emotional steps, the boy showed the world the strength that comes from affection and care. That moment went viral, touching hearts and inspiring thousands. Elliot, moved, saw in his son's face the true victory, not only the overcoming of physical limitations, but the awakening of a joy that had seemed impossible until then. For Claire, that moment was the fulfillment of a mission, to restore hope to those who seemed to have lost everything. The impact of the dance brought donations, support, and a network of solidarity that surprised everyone. The small snack bar became a symbol of transformation, and the family's story gained space in the national media. More than fame, they achieved a greater purpose. The chapter ended with the certainty that love and courage can change lives, and that despite adversity, there is always a path to the light. Building new roots. With this visibility, Elliot decided to invest in his family's life permanently. He bought a house in the small town close to the diner so that Claire, Nathan, and he could build a stable routine. The decision marked the beginning of a new phase, full of concrete plans and dreams. Claire, who had previously thought about leaving the city to try her luck, found a home there where her efforts and love would be recognized. Nathan, now with more confidence, continued his treatment with renewed enthusiasm, supported by a network that grew stronger every day. Elliot gradually moved away from the stressful business and the ostentatious life to focus on what really mattered: family. This process of internal change was as transformative as Nathan's physical progress, revealing a man capable of loving and being loved. The chapter ended with a feeling of hope and gratitude, making it clear that life can surprise us when we make room for the new and trust in the power of love. A new beginning years later, Nathan was already an independent young man full of dreams. Dancing, which had once been hesitant, became his passion and profession, inspiring other children with disabilities. Claire and Elliot together built a true family, based on respect, affection, and daily overcoming. The difficult past is behind them, but the lessons learned from it have never been forgotten. They learned that true wealth lies in human relationships, in caring for one another, and in the courage to face life with an open heart. This transformation not only changed the story of one boy, but of everyone involved in it. The city, which had previously viewed the family with curiosity, began to celebrate their journey as an example of humanity and strength. The small diner became a meeting place for dreams and smiles, a living symbol that life can be reinvented at any time. Elliot, Claire, and Nathan continue their journey, ready to face whatever comes their way, knowing that together they are stronger. The future is a blank page, and they have the courage to write a story full of love and hope. If this story touched your heart and showed the transformative power of love and hope, subscribe to the channel now and be part of this community that believes in the best things in life. Activate the bell to be the first to receive stories that will move, inspire, and transform your day. Share this video with those who need a true message of overcoming, and don't forget, here, each story is a light that can change lives. Join us and be the protagonist of your own transformation.